Hi, welcome to this fourth video on Tablib. In this section and the next we're going to talk about some more, let's say, advanced or specialized at least features of Tablib. So in this video I'm going to talk about dynamic columns. So we've seen previously, I think in the first video, how to add a new column. But this is not dynamically, this is statically, meaning that I then add all the new values after the fact. But here I want to add a new column that automatically computes the new values based on the other values that I have in the rows. And this can be done with dynamic columns. And this is just a convenience feature. You could have written this yourself in Python, but it is still super useful for many different cases. So let's head into the code and see how we can do this in Tablib. So here we are. We've imported the students.csv file, and just to show you, the students.csv file looks like this. So you have a student ID, which you can see here. And then you also have a score. This is a score based on some exam or test that the students have taken. And what I want to do is to calculate then the grade that they should get. One way to do this is to load in the CSV file into a dataset, then explicitly compute the grade for each row, and then insert that back into the dataset as a new column. This would be to do it kind of statically. But here we can also do it dynamically by simply specifying a callback function that makes this computation. So let's see how we can do this. Let me just close the other files here. We can write our own function for calculating this. So let me just write a Python function here called calculate grade. And what this should kind of accept is a single row. So think of this function as accepting a row in the dataset, and then it should calculate the new value that we want based on the kind of existing values in that row. So let's just write a docstring to be a bit clear. Calculate the grade of a student based on the score. This is what I want to do. So first I need to fetch the score, and in the row, actually, the score is the second element. The first one was the student ID. So here I can write row 1. And then let me just take it as an integer. Because when you read something from a CSV file, just by default, it's a string. They don't really have data types. So here we need to explicitly say that this is an integer. And now we can simply write some basic Python logic. Let me start by writing this. So if score is greater than, let's say 93, so this is from kind of 0 to 100. So if it's greater than 93, then I would say that this is a grade A. So let's just return that. Then you can have more statements. So like here I have like an elif statement, bigger or equal to 80. Then let's return the value B and so on. And let me just copy the rest of this because it's not that interesting. It's just basic Python logic. So here we have the other cases. If it's greater than 66, then it's a C. If it's greater than 55, then it's a D. If it's greater than 40, then it's an E. And if it's less than 40, you get an F. So again, this function here just accepts a row and then returns a grade. But now, how can we add this dynamically rather than statically after the fact? What we can do to our, let's see what it's called student data. In student data, you can append a column, but here instead of appending like a traditional column, you can pass a callback function. So then we just do calculate grade. Here we pass in the function. Remember, when we're using callback functions, we don't call it here because then we would just get the return value. We pass in the function object, and then we pass in also here the header for the new column, just to have a name. So let's call this grade. So now if I run this, student data, you can see here that all of the grades have been inserted. So when we've made this dynamic column, this function essentially applies to all the rows. And then you get a new column called grade that has these rows. And this also feels statically because now, first of all, we've imported the data and then we calculate this. But the point here is that when you add more rows, this will automatically be applied. And that's a kind of advantage here. So say now that I want some new data. So let's have student data and then I append some more information. Let's just again do some random numbering here for the student ID. Let's say that this person got 86 as a score. Now, if I print the student data, and this is kind of the crux of it all, here you can see the student number, here you can see 86, and here you can see that they got a value of B. So this is automatically created. When you append new information, then this callback function is just automatically applied, and you also get the calculated grade. So this is kind of the dynamic part of it. Now this is just kind of lying there and automatically calculates this grade information. Finally, I just want to mention here that you can add the dynamic column yourself. So if I really want to, student data.append, then I can let me just make up some new numbers like this. Let's say that the score is maybe 56. And here I can manually insert this myself if I want to. So 56, that sounds like a D to me. It's greater than 55, but less than 66. That means that this should be given a D. And again, if I look at the data, you can see that this is perfectly valid as well. So if I supply it, let's just see here. So if I supply the data, that's perfectly fine as usual. But now if I don't supply the data, this callback function will kind of activate, compute it based on the raw information, and give me the grade anyway. So dynamic columns are super, super useful. When I've used Tablib, I've used this quite a lot. It's pretty simple. You just make some Python function, then you call this here as a callback function. And I think it also is kind of nice simply because it kind of encourages you to write a separate function to do this logic here as well. That gives you kind of this modularization of your code so that you have this calculate grade function that does this one thing really well. And then you just call it here in the callback function, making it so that it automatically gets applied. So that's it for this video. This is short and sweet. In the next and final video on Tablib, I'll talk about formatters and how this also is super useful. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you again next time.